Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mosquito Bites Live. My name is Pablo with the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, and hopefully you're aware that this week is National Mosquito Control Awareness Week. So we've been hosting some lives this week as part of National Mosquito Control Awareness Week. Yesterday we had a great conversation with Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control District, our friends over in Orange County, and they gave us some insight into what we've been doing in mosquito control here in Southern California when it comes to SIT, about Aedes mosquitoes, and all different things like that of what we can anticipate and things we might have been hearing on the news. So again, this is Mosquito Bites Live as part of our series for National Mosquito Control Awareness Week, and I'm very excited to have another great conversation today with our friends in Northern California, Sacramento-Yolo, and I see you're already tuning in, so I'm going to go ahead and put you in on our live in just a few seconds here. It's live for National Mosquito Control Awareness Week. We've been hosting these lives to get more conversations about mosquito control, what we can do about mosquitoes in our communities. Hi, Luz.
Hi, good morning. How's it
Good
going?
morning. Happy National Mosquito Control Awareness Week.
Yeah, same to you. It's a busy week, and look at me. I'm out in our backyard, and mosquitoes are definitely they're not out here now, but we're already definitely seeing them, especially in the evening.
Definitely, for sure. So again, this is Mosquito Bites Live as part of our series for National Mosquito Control Awareness Week, and I'm joined by Sacramento-Yolo Mosquito and Vector Control District. Luz, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about your district?
Yes. So my name is Luz Maria Robles. I'm the district's public information officer, or the PIO for the Sacramento-Yolo Mosquito Vector Control District. We are located in Northern California in the Sacramento region. I've been with the district for almost 17 years, believe it or not. So definitely a long journey in the mosquito world. And our district is one of the larger districts in California. We have a variety of mosquito habitats just because we cover 2 counties. One of our counties is very densely urban or dense urban populations, whereas the other one has a lot of agricultural areas. So a lot of different sources where mosquitoes can come from, and just lots of different matters related to mosquitoes to tend to throughout the year.
Very nice. Yeah, I didn't know that you covered 2 districts, so that must make things very interesting, as of course when it comes to more urban or residential areas versus more rural areas. Those are 2 very, very different things to tackle.
2 different counties. Yeah, rather large district. We have more than 1,200 square miles, 2,200 square miles that we cover. So definitely a very large area.
Nice. So our topic today is mosquitoes in California in 2024, to kind of give a brief overview of mosquito control and how we can protect ourselves from biting mosquitoes in our communities. So Luz, that brings me to my first question that I have for you is, what can we expect our 2024 mosquito season to look like this year?
Well, I think it's shaping up to be a very busy season, very similar to what we saw last year. Actually, we have already started to see mosquitoes that test positive for West Nile virus, as well as dead birds in both of our counties. So, it's definitely looking like it's going to be busy, especially because it's been rather warm. We had a lot of late spring rains, and as we know, that kind of just gives mosquitoes a head start, right? So,
Right.
all those areas around our home can definitely fill with water with those late spring rains. And last week we had a couple of days with triple digit temperatures, and as you know, mosquitoes complete their life cycle a lot faster in warm weather. So I think based on those factors, it's shaping to be it could be a very busy mosquito season. Last year we had a very, very intense and long season for West Nile virus in our district, and we actually had many human cases. We had 53 human cases in Sacramento County and 39 human cases in Yolo County. So we had not seen those numbers in many years, and it just went up by just very staggering numbers.
And when you say human cases, that's mean people that are getting sick with West Nile virus.
That's correct. Yeah, those are the confirmed cases. We actually had a total of eight fatalities within our two counties. So very, very intense. I had not seen that in many years.
Wow. And that's again just a reminder of how important it is to protect ourselves from mosquitoes, be aware of West Nile virus in our areas, and protecting ourselves from the vector borne diseases that mosquitoes can transmit. You touched on a lot of good points there. Yes, we are already seeing West Nile virus positive mosquitoes in our areas. For example, Riverside County here in Southern California has already reported some, and our sister district, Greater Los Angeles, as well. So, and again, it's just a reminder that West Nile virus is endemic to the state of California, meaning it never goes away. It's always present. It's once it gets into the mosquitoes, which can then transmit it into humans, is when it becomes the danger to us. Because it is a bird disease, it's always around in birds. It's once it gets into the mosquito and then the human population is when it becomes a danger to us. So again, just being aware that West Nile virus is present and making sure that we're taking the proper precautions to protect ourselves. And the one thing that I would like to emphasize as well, since we're talking about West Nile virus, is if we see any dead birds, that's something we like to emphasize a lot to residents in our areas, and I know you do the same in Northern California, is a dead bird is essentially the red flag for West Nile virus in your area. If you see a dead bird, we highly recommend, don't touch it or anything. There is a hotline for it, which is the California West Nile virus dead bird hotline, and the number is 877-968-2473, or you can visit westnilevirus.california.gov. And submit any of those tips if you see any dead birds, and us as vector control can go and collect that bird, get it tested for West Nile virus, and see if it is positive or not. Those are hugely important for us to be aware of West Nile virus in the area, as well as making sure that we're protecting our communities and our residents from it. And I do agree. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one easy way that I always remember the hotline, since it's hard for me to remember the numbers, I just remember 1-800-WNV and then bird. And then if you just look for it on the dial, then it's easy to remember that way.
Yes, very easy. And you can always just Google California dead bird or something simple like that, and you'll get the website right away. And again, like you mentioned, here in Southern California, I do anticipate for us to have another busy mosquito season. It is looking very slow for us currently right now in San Gabriel Valley specifically, but we're already seeing a lot of activity in our neighboring counties and cities. So we are definitely prepared for any West Nile virus positives or any dead birds that we might be finding. And we are getting reports of those, and we are getting them tested. We are actively trapping for mosquitoes. So we are very much aware and preparing ourselves as a district.
Can I just... I think a lot of times people don't really understand, or I've been asked this many times, like, what's the relevance? Like, why do you guys want to pick up those dead birds? People don't understand that that's basically how, what kind of gets things going, right? At least, in our district, we do get a lot of participation in the dead bird hotline. So we get a lot of those dead bird reports. We go collect the dead birds, and then if they test positive, then that's what lets us know, where we need to set additional mosquito traps. So we trap around a 1 mile radius of where those birds were found, and then we collect those mosquitoes. Typically, those mosquitoes also test positive, and then of course that just makes it for more testing. So a lot of times, or that's exactly how the season kind of gets going, whenever we start to see the dead birds and then the mosquitoes, and that's usually where potentially human cases can develop later in the season as well. That's why reporting those dead birds is so important, as well as, the trapping, and then of course the control, right? Because once you see that there is West Nile virus in any given area, then that's what prompts the control, the spraying and anything else. But it all starts with the dead birds. So dead birds reports are very important.
Yes, exactly. And I do like how you touched on that, of how much more goes into, what we do as vector control. I think a lot of people just aren't aware of the work that goes into testing for mosquitoes, dead bird collection, and the constant work that's constantly going on behind the scenes. And it's going on all year long, not just during certain times. So that brings me to my next question, Luz, is You're in Northern California. I'm here in Southern California. What mosquito species do you deal with in Northern California versus what we deal with here in Southern California? And is there a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Within our two counties, we have about 27 different species of mosquitoes that are active year round. The two that are most prominent are the ones that transmit the West Nile virus, the Culex pipiens and Culex narsalis. And I believe in Southern California, you have a maybe like a cousin of those or some other variety of a Culex, right? So those are the ones that for us, cause the most concern because we collect them in very high numbers in our rice traps, in people's homes. But those two, right? The Culex pipiens, Culex tarsalis, which can transmit West Nile. Unfortunately, we also have the invasive Aedes, right? We detected invasive mosquitoes in our area in 2019, only in one single area, but since then they've spread very rapidly to many different areas. So Aedes albopictus, Aedes aegypti, those are our more prominent mosquitoes that every year we seem to find them earlier and earlier. Before it was mainly like a fall species, but now our with our weather patterns changing, it seems like we're actually already finding them now. So those are the ones that we're most concerned about, obviously, because the invasive Aedes are aggressive day-bite mosquitoes that can breed both indoors and outdoors, and they have the capability of transmitting Zika, dengue, chikungunya, which are diseases of concern, aside from, of course, West Nile virus, which still continues to be the biggest concern.
Correct. And I really like how you touched on that. Same thing here. We do deal with a lot of Culex mosquitoes, and they are the ones that are capable of transmitting West Nile virus, and they're the ones that are hot on our radar that we're constantly getting tested. Our surveillance department sets out traps, collects those mosquitoes. They then identify which mosquitoes we're seeing, and then they get those mosquitoes tested for any vector-borne diseases. And yes, Culex is what we tend to see a lot more of here, predominantly in Southern California. But, and I'm sure I don't have to remind my Southern California residents, is that Aedes mosquitoes are very predominant as well. They're the small black and white mosquitoes, just like Ada right there you see behind me. And they're the small black and white mosquitoes. They are more aggressive. They're also known as ankle biters. People might know them like that better. But they are far more aggressive than our common mosquitoes. They'll bite you multiple times, and they do bring a lot more of a biting pressure. Currently, right now, they cannot transmit, they're not transmitting any vector-borne diseases here in Southern California. We're more concerned about travel-associated cases. So if somebody gets sick abroad, comes back home here in, let's say, West Covina, and an Aedes mosquito bites them, they can then possibly transmit that vector-borne disease like dengue, Zika, or chikungunya, like you mentioned, and transmit it to somebody who has not traveled. And that's what we're most concerned about. We saw our first local dengue case here in Pasadena, as well as in Long Beach, and that is essentially, the worst case scenario. And that's what we're ultimately trying to prevent as vector control, is getting these mosquitoes tested, doing any treatment as necessary, and educating our residents on what they can do, as well as how they can prevent those mosquitoes on their properties as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that you touched on that because that's one of the big speaking points that we use regularly last year. The fact that in 2023, that was the first time ever that there was any local virus transmission from these invasive Aedes mosquitoes, and that's really the risk, right? I know that to most people, a mosquito is a mosquito, right? All they want to do is just slap it and kill it. But they're definitely very different, and having these invasive mosquitoes was what we like to call like a game changer, because
Right.
we throughout California, there are lots of travelers, that travel to countries where dengue is very common. Just last month, I was in Mexico. I came back with seriously about 5 mosquito bites, on one foot alone. And I know that they were Aedes because I saw them and I recognized them. So definitely was a concern for me upon my return, because Aedes mosquitoes are very, they're found in Sacramento where I'm at as well. So that definitely was on my mind.
Definitely. And I do agree. Again, Aedes mosquitoes are far more aggressive, but we also just need to protect ourselves from any mosquito bites in general. And like you mentioned, especially when we're traveling abroad. That brings me to my next question, which I think is a very important one that everyone should be aware of, is how do we protect ourselves from these mosquitoes? What mosquito repellent should we have on hand, and what should we look for in these mosquito repellents?
Yes. So, people always ask, what's the best repellent? And I always say the best one is the one that you're actually going to use, right? It doesn't do you any good if it's just in on your shelf somewhere. So obviously, anytime you spend time outdoors, it's very important that you always wear a good mosquito repellent. So looking at that label and making sure that it has one of the active ingredients that's, recommended: DEET, picaridin, oil of lemon eucalyptus. There's many different types of repellent out there. There's lotions, there's sprays, there's towelettes. They come in different formulations, so find one that you like and use it. It's also very important to make sure that you're considering the type of activity that you're going to be doing, right? If you're going to be hiking, then you need something with a higher protection. So something that has maybe a 25 to 35 percentage of that active ingredient is going to give you the longest protection, right? About 4 to 6 hours. If you're just going to be walking your dog, going to the park, if you're going to be playing soccer for an hour or two, then something with the lower percentage of that active ingredient is going to be just fine. It'll give you 1 to 2 hours of protection. So the recommendation is to look at the label, look for the percentage of one of those active ingredients, and then also take into consideration the activity that you're going to be doing to figure out what's going to be the best repellent. People often ask about a natural repellent, and there are definitely lots of varieties out there. Oil of lemon eucalyptus is what the CDC recommends. But again, look for a repellent that you like and make sure you use it anytime you spend time outdoors.
I 100% agree. Using the mosquito repellent that you're going to use and making sure that it's an effective one. Like Luz mentioned, you want to look at the label, and it's the label. I forgot to grab one. To look at the label, and on the front of the label, it'll tell you active ingredient. And as long as it says oil of lemon eucalyptus, DEET, picaridin, or IR 3535, you're going to be using something that's safe and effective. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation about mosquito repellent, what works, what doesn't. I've heard a slew of stories, and I'm sure you have, Luz, of what people use to protect themselves from mosquitoes, but unfortunately not all of them always work. And the mosquito repellents are the most effective. We have all that information on our website at sgvmosquito.org, as well as on Sac-Yolo's website. So please visit those websites to be informed on what mosquito repellents to use, because for example, like the little mosquito bracelets that people purchase, those unfortunately don't work. They're only protecting your wrist. They're not really doing anything else. There's also the citronella candles. While it's a good idea, there's a small gust of wind and it blows any of that protection away. It doesn't create this invisible barrier that the advertisement shows us. Unfortunately, that is not true. The best thing is having something physically on your skin. I know for me, I already have my mosquito repellent right outside my door in my backyard. And the biggest thing too that I always like to emphasize when it comes to mosquito repellent is make sure that you put it on right away as soon as you know you're going to be outside. Don't, sit down, relax, enjoy your time with your friends and family, waiting for the mosquito bites. Put it on as soon as you do, just like you do with sunblock or lotion. You put it on first and then, go enjoy your activities outdoors, because you shouldn't be waiting for the mosquitoes to get you. You want to be repelling them as soon as you can. And again, follow the label, follow the label, follow the label. I cannot repeat that enough. Looking at the label for the active ingredients and reapplying as needed, because you might be sweating it off or removing it based on your activity. Like Luz mentioned, if you're out hiking or anything like that, reapply as needed, and you should be able to protect yourself and really minimize any mosquito bites that you might be getting.
Very good.
Awesome. And my last question, Luz, is my last fun question that I always like to end some of my lives with is what's the most surprising or weirdest fact you've learned about mosquitoes?
I don't know. It's definitely not weird or surprising, but I'm always I still can't believe that only the females bite. Like, why do the ladies in the animal kingdom have to be the bad ones, right? So it's always surprising to me just when I think about, mosquitoes as they're flying around you, that only the female bites. And I think that that's probably one of the facts that always gets people when I go give presentations. They're like, what? Like, both have their proboscis. Why do only the females bite? So, that's one that I always kind of have fun with, right? And trying to explain to people. And obviously, once you explain it, then it makes sense, right?
Right.
And then also the fact that mosquitoes are the deadliest animal on the planet. That just blows my mind, right? Because people always think about snake bites and bears and sharks and everything else, right? But when you think about the fact that mosquitoes are are just so incredibly dangerous and that they kill so many people, it's one, very surprising, two, very shocking, um and sad, but at the same time very concerning, right? Mosquitoes are those type or that insect that can live anywhere. No matter where you travel to, you're bound to come in contact with a mosquito. So that's why it's even more important that we do everything that we can to make sure that we're protecting ourselves against bites. And just being cognizant of the fact, if you're traveling somewhere, if you're in your backyard, just anywhere you're at, just please be careful with mosquitoes. Do everything that you can to ensure that you're not being bitten, because that's going to prevent you getting a disease that could potentially change your life.
I 100% agree. Those are really, really good points to touch on. And yes, I do agree. Mosquitoes are the world's deadliest animal, and people don't always know that. We tend to hear about, or fear, sharks in the water or bears in the mountains. But mosquitoes come in contact with us every day, essentially, and wherever you go, except for Antarctica. But I don't know how many people are traveling to Antarctica. But
I
again, but again, they are very dangerous, and it's a serious topic to really protect ourselves from these mosquitoes and the vector-borne diseases they potentially transmit. That essentially ends our live here. I had a really good conversation with Luz from Sacramento-Yolo Mosquito and Vector Control District, and we essentially talked about mosquitoes in California in 2024. We covered a range of topics that we reviewed, as far as what can we expect for what our mosquito season to look like here in Southern California, as well as in Northern California, the type of mosquito species we deal with here in California and Northern and Southern California, and what active ingredients to look for in our mosquito repellents and how we can protect ourselves. But again, this was Mosquito Bites Live. Luz, do you have any closing remarks you have before we end here?
No, just thank you for having me. And as we officially start the summer season, I want to say it's on Thursday, I think, officially summer launches. So just make sure that you're doing everything that you can to stay protected. We have the hottest months of the season ahead when mosquitoes are most active. So please, please, please take the proper precautions to avoid mosquito bites and avoid being sick.
Definitely. Yes, use mosquito repellent to protect yourself, and making sure that you're checking your properties for any stagnant water, because that's where mosquitoes are coming from. So tipping out that stagnant water, tossing unused containers, and then protecting yourself with mosquito repellent is the most effective thing you can do. And don't forget, us as Vector Control, we're here to work with you, our residents, to help educate you, as well as come and do treatments onto your properties or areas in our communities to keep us safe from vector-borne disease. So again, my name is Pablo with the Sangre Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, and I was joined by Luz today from Sacramento-Yolo Mosquito and Vector Control Districts, and this was Mosquito Bites Live, and we hope to see you guys another time.
Thank you. Fight the bite.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye.